Welcome to This is Futbol. Bienvenidos a This is Futbol. This is a special episode we have tonight. Not only is this episode 6, but this is the special episode that we have been announcing for the last maybe 10 days that we've been wanting to really talk about. And this episode is going to focus solely on youth football across South Florida and across the United States. And a few of the topics that we want to talk about, we've got structural issues right now within the U.S. soccer system with this pay-for-play structure that is currently in place, and also with all the talent possibly going to the MLS Next League and so many different clubs and academies available. Some parents are wondering, where are our kids going to get scholarships? How are our kids going to go pro? So we're going to tackle some of these issues with some of our guests that we're going to have on today. So some of the guests we'll have on today is Mauro, which you already know who he's part of our This is Futbol podcast crew. Mauro is a club assistant for Miami Rush, which is an MLS Next club, and he's also a board member. So thank you, Mauro, for being on. We're also going to have on Mike Reyes, which is a former professional soccer player, and he now runs a program called College Dreamers. You can find it at collegedreamers.com. He's basically responsible for finding players who don't have the opportunities, to go to a Inter Miami Academy or to one of these Real Madrid or Barcelona, AC Milan academies that we have around South Florida. And he kind of, recruits these kids, brings them into his team, coaches them up, and essentially finds them a spot, whether that's in a college scholarship or in a professional team, whether it's in the U.S. or even sometimes overseas. So we're going to be very lucky to have him on the show. And also we're going to have on Chris Corey, who I'm very excited for. Apparently he's been telling us he's got some really strong point of views that we're really excited to hear about. But Chris joins us. He's the liaison for Miami for the 2026 World Cup. He's the founder of Palm City American, which is a women's soccer team here in South Florida. And he's also the founder of Vice Soccer, which is an innovative platform that he's created that basically is going to help us tackle this pay-for-play issue that we are currently seeing in South Florida with all these academies and basically all the influx of money in South Florida. So those are the topics that we're going to cover. Of course, we've gotten some questions from some of our listeners over the week that we have and we'll share. But really, this program is for you all that are watching. We want you to come in and share your questions with us. We'll flash them across the screen. We'll have our guests, Mauro, Chris, and Corey. Chris and Mike address those questions, and we'll have Nico and Evet address some of those as well. And again, like I said, this episode is for you. It's a special episode. It's a Monday, not a Tuesday. So let's get started. Let's go right into it, boys.
All right. So, Danny, maybe it is worth to clarify why I'm treating here as a guest and not as a regular. Well, because one of my activities is I'm associated with Miami Rush Kendall. I'm an assistant coach there of MLS Next team, and also part of the board. Actually, I'm a treasurer, so I can speak from my perspective from inside an MLS Next club. What are the costs? And maybe be able to respond some of the questions that people have. In addition to, of course, like all of us having kids playing in South Florida youth soccer and playing as an amateur as well during the last 10, 15 years, and knowing all these wonderful people that we'll have here tonight. So yeah, I'm excited, but also I like to see a lot of questions coming from the community. I know the Miami Day Soccer Instagram page are posted a bunch of flyers, hoping to get a lot of you guys out there, curious and asking questions as well.
Absolutely. I'm grateful to actually be here on this episode as well. My journey isn't as broad as Mauro's because now he's involved. I wish I could be involved as well, but for different reasons, I'm not precisely involved on the soccer world. However, I do have my son who is 6 years old, and obviously, it's very important for me to actually, see his development and growth, and I'm very excited for that. And I also want to see, want to reflect the differences from when we were players as to what it is today. So I'm really excited for this episode and can't wait to to get going with the Q&As.
Absolutely.
So good night, guys. Again, sixth show. So thank you so much, everybody on the team to keep this going. What we love to talk about today. Miami-Dade Soccer brought this up, so we're having this special show today. As a former youth player, I stopped being a coach about 12, 13 years ago because of many of the reasons that we're going to discuss today, which I don't agree with. So I say that we get into it with people that are involved today to see how the game and the process has changed since I stopped playing youth soccer here in South Florida. So I don't know if we want
something else ever that Ever and I can provide a perspective with is like both of us play youth soccer in Uruguay, in South America. So that's something that we can in some way or another can compare what the way that we were taught how to play this game, our surroundings, the infrastructure and everything compared to they offer here in the US.
Yeah, so I played soccer until academy in Uruguay until I was 15 years old. Then I came to the US and I stopped my development. So I leave it there.
No, come on.
So I want to put that out there.
All right.
Let's get going, Danny.
Let's get going. All right. Well, do we want to do you have a video for us, Nico? Or
no.
Should we get right into questions?
Get right into the questions. Let's get right into the questions.
Let's get right into the questions. So we got a lot of questions from the viewers over the week, and a special thanks to Miami-Dade Soccer for posting all those posts out there, because we got a lot of information from you and a lot of questions from you. But the first question that we got that I thought that was interesting to talk about was, is it worth it for young kids, specifically U12, to go through an MLS Pro Youth Academy? And if so, why? And I thought that was an interesting question to talk about. I don't mind do you mind if I take it first? I'll flash the screen on there. But to me, I don't think it's important. I'm kind of the old school mentality. Playing youth soccer my entire life here. I played between two clubs my entire life, Strike Force and West Kendall. And I see how, these academies have come in over the last maybe like 10, 15 years and have dispersed, all this, all the players into various teams. I think you and I were talking about it, Nico, earlier. You said there were something like 67 academies across South Florida.
Yes.
And so before, it wasn't like that. It was three main teams. And so you didn't have to go through an MLS Pro or any academy to do that. And I still don't think that you do. And I think one of our guests at the end of later in the show, Mike, is or next on the show, is going to be able to comment a little bit about that, and he'll be able to kind of give you guys an idea of another option than to go through that MLS Academy.
Yeah, but the question here is it worth it, right? The way I read this question is like, if you have the opportunity, to go to an MLS next, being Miami Rush or Weston or South Florida, or even Inter, I guess my response would be yes. Like the way the current system works, like if you have the opportunity, if you can make that team, if your kid can make that team, yes, it is worth it. That's where the majority of the scouts are setting their eyes on these 3-4 clubs, right? Now, is the end of everything? Is like like the only source, the only path? No, that's why we have the examples like the college dreamers and other examples that Chris in a little bit can explain us out, and other clubs. Like there's very talented players playing outside the MLS, and maybe that was one of the reasons we're here, right? Like, is the US overseeing all that talent? Are they only focusing in the 3 or 4 clubs in South Florida when there's another 50 clubs? Is the system convenient at the end of the day? Like, are we getting kids going off the grid through the sleeps? Either because of the pay for play, either because the few scouts that are today in the MLS Next clubs are overseeing. So those are the questions that we have. But I think yes, it is worth it nowadays. Is is where every kid would like to be, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean that if your kid is not in an MLS Next, nothing is lost, and there's still
Especially at that
opportunities
age,
out
right?
there.
Especially because of the age, right? I feel
Yeah.
like that age, there's just so much more for the kid to actually grow within those few years afterwards, that not everything should be lost when it comes to that, you know?
And it also depends on the objective, that you have as a parent. What are you looking for your kid to do? If you at that time, if you're deciding between an MLS Pro Academy or not. So at that age, like Nico said, I don't think it's worth it, personally. And there's it also the objective when if you decide that your kid wants to go to college or get a scholarship or go pro. So that's a decision that after 14, 15 years old you have to make. So I think it's not worth it.
Correct. These are all great questions and these are all great answers. But I wanted to go ahead and have our guest right on the show, because I feel like he might give us a different perspective as to what we see here. So I want to welcome Chris Corey into
Let
this.
me let me give a brief
Go ahead.
introduction.
Go ahead.
Chris Corey, a good old friend of mine. We were teammates in college. We played for years. He was our center back. I was a forward, and we have many memories. And we also partner in a few other soccer projects. And have been in touch through all these years. Thank you. Thanks to this beautiful sport. A guy that I admire a lot, and I follow closely because he's always in the correct spots when it comes to South Florida soccer. So thank you very much for being here, Chris. And we're very happy to have you and to listen to your perspective and outside of the box kind of mentality.
Thank you, Mauro. Thank you. It's a joy to be here, guys. It really is, and especially any invitation from Mauro, and I'm there and excited to talk to you guys about about this really important topic. And I love the first question. It's a great question.
What do you think, Chris? What's going on? Maybe like if you want to attack that first question, Danny, if you can display it again, and maybe like as a follow up, what's going on today? What's wrong and what's good in current South Florida soccer environment and structure? Give us like an intro. For
Yeah, I remember the question. Is it worth going and playing in one of these MLS Next or MLS Academies? And I would say no. I would say that spend your time finding the few individuals that have the true pathway in the American soccer system, because it's not based on sporting merit. People think it matters going to these clubs and excelling on the field. Yes, it matters. But without that extra piece of knowing the right people who recommend you, you're not going anywhere. It's just the truth of the matter. It's really a sad situation, if you ask me.
So, Chris, that's a pretty strong statement. What do you mean? Like, are you implying that in these clubs, first of all, like you need to have some sort of internal interest or know someone or become friends with coaches in order to get your opportunity? Or what do you really mean by that? Like there's no soccer merit if you're not. Yes, please.
100%. That's what I've seen. That's what I've seen on the highest levels of it. If you look at the call-ups for the youth national team, right? The call-ups from the youth national teams are coming from 2, 3, 4 mainly academies that are in a sweet spot. And at these academies, it's well known that if you haven't been there long enough, you're not going. Doesn't matter how good you are, right? There's systems in place within this pathway that just absolutely root out the sporting merit. What's going on the actual pitch is probably, I would say, 25% of what matters. I've met hundreds of parents that have been through these pathways. They're moving their kids all over the country to these clubs that have the right in at the right moment. They're moving. Philly Union's a big one. Everyone's moving to Philly, right? That's the way that the parents that are very invested and want the best for their kids, they're literally moving the whole family to the academies that have the pathway. And then when they get there, they're on the seniority waiting list for national team call-ups. That's just the reality of where we are right now as a country. And we're not progressing. We're going backwards, because when you have 72 U15s called up and 68 come from MLS Next clubs that represent 20 states out of 50, and you're telling me that's us doing a good job getting into the grassroots and getting the best talent, that's just it's a joke, man. And the first step, I think, is to admit that it's a joke and then start fixing it.
Mauro, you're a great example. You're having an opportunity, 9 hours, of flight away, with your son having a club, right here next to your doorstep. So
now, Chris, I wanted to ask you something. You raised a point which it's very important. The systematic issues, and it's something that we know that it's wrong. However, how can we more or less try to fix that in a way?
Yeah, well, I'll give you one great example. At too many clubs, there are teams, and these teams are loyal to coaches, and then therefore the club is at the behest of the coach. And even if there's a first, second, and third team, these are static teams, right? And when you have static teams, meaning no one moves from team to team, these parents end up believing that this one coach is the messiah of development for youth soccer in the United States, and they have to follow him everywhere they go, right? And then what happens is you have one coach who now has a relationship with 15, 16 parents. They'll go wherever he goes, right? And then where's development in that? If you have a first, second, and third team, those teams should not be static, right? Players should be moving back and forth depending on performance, attitude, effort, all of that. You don't get that. These teams stay the same for 6 years. That's madness. And then really what happens is the coach ends up just being being somebody who the club is scared of, right? The clubs are terrified. One of the great
coaches have more power than the actual club. Yeah.
Yes. And what
that's a good point. Some parents stick to a coach, Chris. Some parents stick to a coach, or kids becomes comfortable with that specific coach. And like the old saying says, if you always stay within your comfort zone, you're never gonna expose yourself to new experiences and learn and grow. So I totally agree with you in that kids should be exposed to different coaches, should get criticism, should play different positions. If your kid is comfortable playing as a center forward with a 9 in your back, okay, let's make sure that during the year or even next year, he gets a different coach, or even the same coach try him in a different position, towards the right, towards the left, because we are in developing stages. So that's a good point. Like I don't agree on following a coach like a messiah, like he's like the only source of knowledge about the sport.
And
but let me tell you, Mauro and Chris, let me tell you, this isn't really anything new though, because I played youth soccer down here in South Florida, like I said earlier, Strike Force in West Kendall, and it was the same thing. I mean, I had friends of mine, players who followed a coach up to play in Plantation, and my parents said, "Yeah, we're not going to drive you 45 minutes twice or 3 times a week to Plantation when we live in Kendall, just because this guy's up there." No, so I went to go play in West Kendall, and I didn't play in Strike Force anymore. And that's just how it's always been. And I don't know if there is a fix. I think we're just so deep into it that I'm just not sure if there is like an easy fix. There definitely isn't. And I think it might be a cultural thing now, or I don't know. I mean, it's just a really interesting topic to really get into, and we could probably talk about it for 3 or 4 days if we wanted to. But it's just something that's been instilled in youth soccer, in the youth soccer culture for years now, and the question is, can we come back from it? That's my question: is can we come back from it?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is not to demonize the people running these clubs or the coaches or anybody. These are literally systematic problems, right? And they're all just, everybody's operating to the best of their ability inside this broken system. I played at Strike Force as well, and my whole team moved to Boca Gunners, and I couldn't make that trip either. So I hear you, man. And then I played at West Kendall. So you and I seem to have things in common. But I think the most important thing we can do is make small steps, right? Make tiny steps. If you're at a club where they have static teams, try and fix that, right? Static teams give coaches too much power, and they're a huge barrier to development. The same what Mato said, trying different positions. Different coaches have different systems. Mato and I had 3 different coaches in 4 years at our college. You have to be able to play under different coaches in different systems. So it's a real problem, and we need to start making changes there.
Just to put a quick note there, where I play youth academy for a professional soccer team in Uruguay. I played in the 7th division, which is like under 14, with one coach. When we went to under 15, we will have to play with the coach of the under 15. We don't go forward. We didn't move forward with the same coach through the whole process. So that's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the minor steps that Chris is suggesting, right? Like, but there's so many things to fix.
Yeah, definitely.
So next question, Danny. Let's move on. Otherwise, we'll stay stuck on this one forever.
Absolutely. I'll put up another question here from one of our guests. So, Chris, do you think, and this is really to everybody, but did the influx of money from the academies in Europe ruin youth soccer in South Florida? And I think, I mentioned it earlier, and Nico mentioned it earlier. To me, there was 67 youth academies now in South Florida. So I think this is another interesting question. I mean, there's just so much. Like I said before, it was only 3 or 4 teams, and now you've got so many options to go to. What do you guys think?
I think growth, it's, you go into different categories. Obviously, the growth in soccer, before there was only like 2 soccer fields in South Florida. You will go to Miami Lakes, West Kendall, the field in Broward. But now there are so many soccer fields. There are so many soccer parks, specifically soccer parks. And, the sport has grown tremendously in the last 20 years. And of course, with growth, you need more academies, you need more process. But I think the way these academies work is not the way for development. I think the only thing that develops are pockets with this system.
On that point, Ever, and I'll let Chris speak in a minute, but I disagree with you. There's not enough soccer fields and soccer parks in Miami-Dade. That's actually a big issue right now. There's too many clubs for the available soccer fields that are out there. And if you want to if you can get your hands around a little patch of land around Miami-Dade, it costs a lot of money. And that may be the main driver for this high cost that get translated into high fees for the parents. And one particular difference, not South Florida, Miami-Dade with the rest of Florida and the rest of the U.S., the amount of clubs that we have here per square mile compared with Tampa, even Boca, even Broward, is significantly higher. There's a lot of competition. Okay, so a lot of talent is divided among 10, in Miami-Dade, in West South Florida, and Chris may agree with me, there's maybe like 10, 15 clubs. When in any other part of the states, maybe you have 1 or 2 clubs. But what do you think, Chris? Why is becoming expensive? Why is it so costly to run a club to get your kid into soccer cleats?
The demand has driven up the cost. The demand for youth soccer in Miami is so high that it has driven up the competition. It's driven up the cost of running it, you name it. And these European clubs that come in, if we're being honest, they're really just laughing at us, right? If they truly believed that these academies were places for them to source talent, they'd be free. That's the way that they do it everywhere else. But every once in a while, they may find a kid, but really they're doing this because now the United States, the parents, the youth soccer parents are paying them to spread their brand and create some revenue. That's it. That's all it is. That's all it is. You just got to be honest about it. I mean, the Barcelona Academy, I don't mind saying, is the most expensive one in Miami. And they're doing great business, right? But don't tell me it's about development. Come on, man. It's not. Like, let's just be clear about it. It's not about development. It's about spreading the Barcelona brand and making some money while they're doing it. It's brilliant, right? They're doing great business. But, people say, well, the best development track. If it was their real development track, it would be free. They would have no problem paying for it if they ever thought that a player would come through that development pathway and put on a Barca shirt. They would do it for free. The field space, I've banged my head on the wall so many times about this. We have nothing but empty baseball fields everywhere in Miami-Dade County, right? I can't stop on this one. I actually put a petition in for clubs to start being able to use the outfield of baseball fields at Tropical Park and those places, but no. You would have thought I said, we needed to drop Biohazard on the baseball fields. But, this is just an absolute disgrace that
and they keep building them.
Don't have field. And they keep building baseball fields. It's because and here it is. The guys in charge mostly are Cuban, and that's baseball, right? There's a cultural issue there. I know because I've sat in front of them and I've said, there's 10 soccer players for every baseball player, and you guys keep building baseball fields. And then you just continue to have problems with clubs going nuts.
And the city, and the reality is that this city is still run by majority, Cuban Americans. And that will take a long time to change the deep structural issues on the funds that are being devoted to build new green spaces, whether those green spaces are going to become, or they're going to have a baseball corner or a football corner or a soccer corner. And the people that are taking decisions, they're probably not our generation yet. They come from different cultures and they see other priorities. And we need to, I guess, deal with that for a while.
Right.
One question I wanted to ask you, Chris, if you don't mind me getting in, because we were talking about pay for play, and I think it's very important. Mm-hmm. So I know that we did a little bit, we did a little background research on you. We know about Vios. So that's something that we want to kind of get into, that now that you're on the program and the pay for play structure. So we're kind of curious on that Vios, on how does that work, or, what is it that is, talk about it, kind of let the viewers know like what that is and how that's going to work.
Yeah. So it stands for Vertically Integrate U.S. Soccer, VIUS. And what we did is instead of going after the large sums of money that are processed by youth clubs, we attacked the sector that no one had thought about targeting yet, which is all of the money that's Venmo'd and Zelled between parents, right? So anytime you need to pay for ref fees, field fees, tournament fees, all of that is Zelled or Venmo'd in between parents. And so what we did was we built a convenience app to where parents can exchange that money under the club's umbrella, and then it uses convenience fees. And the way the convenience fees work is they go back to the club. Again, you heard me say strengthen the club. I believe that if our clubs can become stronger and not be held hostage by coaches or by associations, FYSA, US Club Soccer. There's just too much power in the wrong hands. You got to trust the club to develop for that area. We were able to help grow Little Haiti Football Club, which is the only 100% free youth club in Florida now. And we are developing players into Inter Miami. You know, our squad scrimmage Inter Miami, we've been able to do that completely for free using a lot of these funds that are created from separate initiatives. If you go to Little Haiti and you see a player come on and that player is 14 years old, goes into the U15 training, he's too good, 10 minutes later, U16, 10 minutes later, U17. You'll have a 14-year-old playing U20 within 30 minutes, right? That's development, right? There's no discussion about whether or not that player should stay at U15 so that they can win a bunch of tournaments and attract more players to the club. There's no discussion of that ever, right? It's just straight to where that kid belongs to challenge him for development. So what Vias is Vias is kind of a different way of thinking about the money in youth soccer and starting to harness the financial power of the demand youth soccer has in this country to reroute it to strengthen our clubs, right? Because the clubs need help. They're at the mercy of coaches, associations, like everything I mentioned. And then they're at the mercy of the systematic problems of American youth soccer development. So like I said, never demonize your clubs. They're doing the best they can. It's just a very difficult job.
Definitely. And that's genius, Chris. How can we learn more about this program? If you can, you know, I'm sure you have a website or something, but maybe a bunch of us that are watching today, even myself, are part of clubs, right? And in the board, and who knows? Like, if you can, maybe like lead us in the direction on where we can get more information, or I don't know if you have any promotional flyers or videos or something, so we can continue learning about this.
So it's www.vias.tech, TECH. That's it. That's our website. You can learn about what we do. But again, what I'd really like to leave everyone with is not really a promotion of my company, but more of, I'd like people to start changing the way they think about the money in youth soccer, and in soccer in general, because the grassroots, us on this call, the parents of players, we have the power, right? The coaches, the administrators have the power. If we can just stop thinking the way we do about these different clubs and just start thinking about kids, right? My club versus your club, which club is better, this, that, no. If we started thinking about kids and the best way to create a development pathway for them, and left some of the pettiness and problems that come along with youth soccer by the wayside, we would do a lot better.
Right.
Wow.
And I think the U.S. soccer program would be a lot further along than they are today, if that would have
100%.
happened. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that has a lot to do with the U.S. men's soccer program. It leads into that.
U.S.
where we are
soccer, U.S. soccer is the number one problem, if you ask me. And I always get in trouble for this, but I don't care. U.S. soccer and MLS, they work together, and they're not supposed to work together, right? The FA and the Premier League, they don't work together, right? Because the FA's job is sporting merit, and then the Premier League's job is running a profitable and professional league, right? But there's no balance here in the U.S. U.S. soccer and the MLS are married, and they're not supposed to be married.
Yeah, it's a monopoly.
It is. Yeah.
And really, what sucks is it hurts our youth.
Yeah, and if you say promotion relegation, you lose your job. You know?
That's Mauro's favorite.
Chris, 20 years ago, the exposure that we used to get, I believe, is the same as now, without having to pay a cent. We only pay for tournaments and when we had to travel. We didn't pay a fee to anybody 20 years ago. Yep. And the merit to go to ODP, which I don't even know if that exists anymore. Regionals and in national camp, I think it was about the same or even more. I remember that I had 5-6 teammates with me on the state team, regional team, without paying a cent to anybody, other than tournaments, cost.
Yeah. But
coaches were volunteers.
Right.
Coaches were volunteers back then.
Yeah. No, what I was gonna say is on that topic, on the program and all that, like let's say how it is, right? In Inter Miami, if the kids there do not pay, why? Because Inter is investing in one of these kids to one day reap benefits for the club, right? Like for transfer rights, economic right, whatever you want to call it. Now, but Inter is the only professional team, if you will, like fully professional in entire state. If we had other teams that have the possibility of becoming fully professional, of playing in first division, on showing this talent to the rest of the world, and ultimately selling the economic rights of these players and make money out of them, maybe these clubs will invest in these kids and not ask parents for anything, right? So I think that's part of the big, deep structural issues that we have here in the U.S. The club that I'm associated with, Miami Rush doesn't have a first team. They does not compete in a professional league where you can sell tickets, where you can sell broadcasting rights, so on and so forth, right? The only source of revenue for coaches to get paid and for fields to get paid is parents. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible, and that's the reality. And we saw this in Uruguay, for instance, like none of the kids pay. There's much less resources in Uruguay than in the U.S. It's almost like a third world country, right? But each club, invest on these kids. There's in Montevideo 1 million people live in the city, and there's 20 professional teams. So and none of the kids pay to play. And here we live in South Florida, 10 million people, one professional team. Yeah. And that goes to the first question. If my kid is not in that single team, it feels like it's off the grid, and there's not a clear path. And that's feels like it's a crisis that all of us parents have, because we have all these clubs and everything, but nothing leads into what it's supposed to lead into 100% exposure. We need to be always like looking around for other options, and what is this, and what if my kid goes to Spain and practice there? What if go to another state? You have to move around so much instead of having the possibility, having a clear path. And maybe that's what Mike can expand a little and bring him on in a few minutes. Chris, before we let you go, and changing a little bit the topics, why don't you give us like a couple minutes of your role as a liaison of Miami for the 2026 World Cup? Any insightful information that you may have that we don't know? And of course, it's a topic for you to come on a different day and continue. We would love to have you many more nights if you're available. But yes, if you want to please explain us a little bit the role that you have, or pretty much the role of the city on getting this, getting the stadium for the World Cup.
Yeah, I'd say that volunteer job of being the liaison to World Cup 2026 for the city of Miami is probably the coolest thing I've ever been able to do. It's a collaboration between the city of Miami and Miami-Dade County. It took 5 years. I was on that team for 5 years, named the liaison the last 2 years of the bid. We ended up winning, and the Miami will host World Cup matches in 2026. In the next few months, you should start seeing more updates about events and things leading in to 2026. It's the most exciting thing in my lifetime that will happen in the city I was born and raised in. I'm from West Kendall. So being able to be a part of that team that is going to bring the World Cup to the city, again, is very special for me. And what I'll say is that is the single biggest opportunity we have as a country to elevate the necessary elements of the sport in this country to become a proper footballing nation, is my best way of putting it, right? We have a chance next 3 years, and it's a big chance. So I would say for an update, just hold on tight. We're going to be putting out lots and lots of putting on lots of promotional events, a lot of ideas going around with how we'll ramp up to World Cup 2026. So it's a very exciting time. Thanks for mentioning it. Yeah, I love that topic.
Good job, Chris. Hopefully we get like a semifinal, huh?
I can't say anything about that, but hopefully.
All right, Chris. Well, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate you and your time on the show. And like Mauro said, we're definitely gonna have you on again if you want to come on again.
Always.
Maybe a little closer as we get to the World Cup, or maybe when we get to some qualifier games, we'll have you on to talk about some U.S. soccer. But thank you very much, and
Awesome.
hope to have you on again soon, man.
Chris, thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks,
Thank you for
guys.
being with us.
Thank you.
Bye, Chris. Thank you.
All right, and as we let our first guest of the day go, we're going to bring on our next guest, who is actually one of our own. So we want to welcome Jonah Andrade on. He is a coach for Parkland, and he is one of our own
guy?
on this show. Yeah, he's been a stranger for the last few shows, but welcome back, Jonah.
What's up, guys? Sorry, I've been a little bit lost the last couple of days, and if you hear my voice a little bit messed up, getting over a little cold from watching the Super Bowl last night outside. And change of weather, man.
I thought you were yelling at your kids.
No, never yell. Never
That's
yell.
a no-no. You cannot be yelling at kids nowadays.
Hey, what about when we were younger? Did our coaches yell at us?
Oh, come on.
I mean, if they weren't yelling,
Play-by-play narrators.
Oh, man.
All right, so let's get right into the questions with you, Jonah, because Jonah is a youth coach down here in for Parkland, and I forget what age group you coach, Jonah, but I know you've coached various age groups and various teams. So we just kind of want to get right into the questions with you, and I think this is one big topic that we have yet to address on the show, and it's high school soccer versus club soccer, and this goes back to our days as well, playing all of us on the show. Back in our day, it was high school soccer. You took time off during club soccer. There was no club soccer when you had high school soccer. Maybe we had a sub tournaments and stuff, but now it seems like, the club soccer teams are telling players, don't play on your high school team, only stick to your club team. We don't want you getting hurt. So, what do you think about that? And what does the rest of the show think about that?
Yeah, so like you said, and Mauro, you can probably help out a little bit more with this because you're in the MLS Academy and in the system. So like you said, I coach for Parkland. We're not an academy, and it's funny that we call it an academy or we call it a club. I saw one of the comments from one of the viewers saying in parentheses, it's a club, not an academy. So like my question is like, what's an academy? What's a club? What's the difference? Is there a difference? Yeah. Like you can have a club go out and beat an MLS next team 8-0. So does that mean that they're not an academy? Like, it's just something to think about. But so now these MLS next teams, a lot of them, they don't allow you to play high school. Back in the days when Danny, you and me and Ever, like high school was the thing. High school was like, club was second. High school was first. Everybody wanted to be a state champion and whatnot. But high school was huge back then. But nowadays, you go out and you watch a high school game and it's below average, if that. You get a select few of high schools that actually have decent programs. Just off the top of my head, talking about South Florida, from what I hear, Doral has a pretty decent high school. And then maybe there's a couple more here and there. But back when we were growing up, we had Varela, we had Sunset, we had Killian, we had American Heritage. So many high schools that produced good players. Obviously, the seasons are only 2 to 3 months. So that's the biggest difference from high school to club. Club, you're going 10, 11, 12 months even, full round year. And high school, you have your tryouts in September and the year's over in January. But back in the day, a lot of us high school players, I went to Sunset High School where we had a strong team for 2, 3, 4 years where we were state champions and even national champions. And my high school team, my senior year and the years after that, we produced many, many college players and even professional players. Things have changed. You go out there and these high schools, they don't exist anymore. High school soccer doesn't exist.
because like you said, Jonah, back in the day, I wasn't raised here. I didn't play soccer when I was a teenager, but I understand that you had your seasons, right? Your club season and your high school season, in a way. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. Like any competitive team, not only MLS Next, any competitive team here in Miami, they play all year long. They stop maybe the peak of the summer, right, in July and August, but and they practice almost every day. 3-4 times a week, and you have games on Saturday, sometimes Sunday, and you have tournaments. So I just do not conceive how, on top of all that demanding schedule of practices and trips and tournaments and games, you can also squeeze in there high school competition. It's either one or the other, unless either the club or the high school is okay with the player not practicing and missing, some of the games. So it sounds like the structure changed. There is, priorities given to clubs nowadays, not only MLS Next clubs. As a matter of fact, MLS Next players are not allowed to practice high school. Kids in the reserves and non-MLS Next teams or leagues, they can, somehow, try to do both, or if their high school coach allows them and play, a game here and there, they can. But the MLS strictly, prohibited kids to play this, side competition, if you will, because of injuries, because, players get tired, and again, it's very, very competitive nowadays. And kids need to be fully devoted to their club schedule. So I guess that's the situation nowadays. I don't know if anyone in the community or maybe Mike or you, Jonah, or you, Danny, have a different opinion, but sounds like the structure and the schedule change, and there's no way to turn around.
Yeah. One last thing, and you guys mentioned it earlier in the show. I think Danny talked about, back then, to play club soccer for West Kendall or any of the big clubs down in South Florida back in the day, you paid $150 registration and you had to pay your uniform. That's it. What did our parents pay back in the day? Nothing. What did the coaches get paid back in the day? Nothing. Now, like you're saying, Mauro, they're not allowing these players to play high school. And it's understandable. These clubs want to protect their players. They don't want them to go out and play a high school game that, at the end of the day, is meaningless, and this player gets injured. These are MLS Next clubs that are trying to perform on the weekend and get results and, build their club and produce players to get on to the next level. So they're not going to risk that. So, high school, unfortunately, nowadays has doesn't exist like it did back in the day.
No, absolutely. Well, we got a video that we want to go to, a special video on Luis Enrique that talks about coaching, and then maybe Jonah, you can comment on it, and we're gonna have our third guest join us on right after the video, Mike Reyes, who is the leader of College Dreamers, and you can look it up at collegedreamers.com. But let's go to that video before we get our last guest on.
Los padres de los niños de fútbol base, ¿podrías también dar un consejo a los entrenadores? Sin ninguna duda. Primero y principal, todos dicen lo mismo, y lo oigo en categorías inferiores infinidad de veces. No, lo importante es formar al niño y tal. Y ves el de la Levín del Barça que quiere ganar 25-0 y ganar todos los títulos porque quiere, evidentemente es importante su evolución de entrenador. Error. Cojan entrenadores que solo quieran formar. Y formar significa que los niños tienen que jugar en esas edades, para mí, en diferentes posiciones. No especializar a un niño, porque un niño tiene que saber que para jugar de lateral tiene que ver la dificultad que tiene cuando juega de medio y cuando juega delantero, y que prueben hasta de portero todas las posiciones y sobre todo que jueguen todos. Yo en mi época en el Sporting de niño tuve 2 años, casi 3, que no jugué casi nada, porque era muy delgadito, no tenía fuerza. En vez de formarme, yo me formé porque estaba entrenando allí al mejor nivel y porque tenía mucha ilusión. Pero estuve 2-3 años y el Pito Abelardo igual, no jugaba nada. Y me echaron del Sporting. Y me fui a un equipo que se llama Club Deportivo La Braña en Gijón, donde fui hiper feliz, El nivel era más bajo, evidentemente, y ahí jugué muchísimo. Señores, si su hijo no juega en la cantera del Barça, del Madrid, del Atlético de Madrid, del Sporting, del Oviedo, del que sea, o del Avilés, fuera. Bájelo a otra categoría, que juegue. Su hijo tiene que jugar, probar diferentes posiciones. Y los entrenadores de categorías inferiores, si tenéis intención de subir y queréis haceros entrenadores, no empecéis con niños, porque vosotros buscáis el resultado y los niños no necesitan ese agobio y esa presión. O sea que mi consejo, si quieres formarte y quieres formar a niños, perfecto. Fórmalos, exígelos, mejora su técnica, que es la única condición. No les hables de táctica, de preparación física, eso no vale para nada en esas edades. Hablo en edad hasta los 13, 14 años. Que jueguen en diferentes posiciones, cámbialos, que pasen por el banquillo y que se queden sin convocar todos, que jueguen todos y ya está, porque estás formando, no tienes que ganar títulos.
Bueno, we're gonna have Luis Enrique in the show.
That was a nice special guest that we had there. Yeah. So I wanna introduce our last guest of the show, and we want to keep you on, Jonah, for this last segment.
Absolutely.
But our last guest is Mike Reyes. I've actually had the chance of playing against him many times out in KSP, and we've had our fair share of battles. The four of us on here. He's the leader of College Dreamers, which is basically a program, and I want him to talk a little bit more about it. But it's a program who kind of takes a look at off the grid players that he's recruited, and basically you coach them up to get them college scholarships or get them into the pros, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Mike?
You're on mute. Empezamos bien, Mikey.
Sí, no, ahí los botones me tienen enredado. No, pros, it's a different world, man. I don't really talk about pros until, you already show me what you've done in the D1, level. It's a process. It's been a process. It was a process for me. It was a process for a lot of our boys. It was a process even when I even played against Jonah, and those were some fun times.
There's a rivalry, man. There's a rivalry. For those of you that don't know,
Summit League.
Mike Reyes went to I think you went to a community college before,
yes,
right? But he went to Oakland University up in Rochester, Michigan, Division I college, powerhouse. Went to a couple NCAA tournaments. We had some battles back in the day. I went to Western Illinois University, also Division I small school. But Mike played with a couple professionals, actually one that is still currently in the MLS, a very well-known goalkeeper that played overseas and now is an MLS veteran, Steve Clark.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, Clarky was a man. We had a crazy team at that time. It was full of internationals, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a fun environment. It was rough in the beginning, but then when we started changing it up, with the different. My last year, my coach cut half of the roster. Like, literally, that was one of the scariest moments of my life, because I knew it was like going into that one-on-one meeting. It was like, oh my God, am I gonna get cut tonight? Or is today my day? Because if it is, I have to come home. And it was rough. Gary Parsons was a rough coach, but I love that guy to death. That guy knows that. He's the reason why I am today. He was so rough, love and hate relationship, but it was worth it. With those men, Eric Pogue down there too. He's still doing it for 15 years now, and he's done a great job with the program. But they both have taught me so much throughout the process, And even when I was there, I was always asking questions. Like, one of my biggest things that I was there was like, why don't you guys go recruit in Miami? It's like, I'm the only Miami guy that's ever gotten up here besides another guy. But like, why don't you guys go down there? And it all bases off on, one of the things that everything comes down to is money, financially, budget, things get cut, COVID budget was like even harder. So, D1 programs are really looking to go to places that, they know they're going to, come back with something. And they're not going to invest money into traveling. And then next thing you know, they just, saw 5 guys in Miami that didn't have, the grades, didn't know how to speak English, didn't have the SAT score to help them academically with their package, and then or just wasn't a little bit financially stable. So it was very hard for them to even just consider to even do that. And there's a lot of schools do that. They have a whole skit of, where do we go? Is this where we're going to be able to find out, scratch this, scratch that? So it's a process, man. And that was one of the things that really geared me to doing what I'm doing today is
Mikey.
To knock that out.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that, and maybe for the benefit of the viewers, like I've seen your program. I played against your kids. When I say I said the team that I coach, and they're so talented. Like there's so many good players that I cannot believe these kids are not like I don't understand. Not believe. I do not understand how these kids where do these kids come from? Like, how are they not already in whatever in a structured, organized club? In the path that everybody expects these kids to be. Like, if you can tell us examples of and maybe this will relate to some of the viewers and parents that are listening today. Like, where are all these kids coming from, and why? They go to you and not they are already in the top academies or in the top clubs or already in I don't know in Inter Miami, in Orlando City. How is that possible? Give us some examples so we can relate.
Well, it's really more of a screening thing, and for me, I have to really trust that the boys are gonna do what we all ask for them to do. And then one of the biggest things is being coachable, and when we come down to recruiting and helping Inter Miami with players, you're not just going to be sending just anything out there, and it's a process. It's a disciplinary process that I have to deal with, which I'm always involved in them. I try not to miss a practice. They know that I'm there, and with Darren, Victor Pastora, they know that if I'm going to send someone, it's because they're, somewhat fully developed in some kind of way that they're going to be able to just say, hey, you know what, this kid just needs one little thing, maybe two little things, and I could do that, and then we could really use him, and he could be an impactful player. And it's the same thing when it comes to colleges. Colleges want student athletes, student athletes that are really going to go there and focus on being a student first and then an athlete. It's really how it's called, is a student athlete. And not only that, but they're not going to come back home. Most of us deal, a lot of the players that when they come to me, they understand that I'm getting a little bit from everything. I kind of like took up the PDL system that what we all had back then in the 06 and the 07 era. You could only allow 5 players from the same university to play in that one team. So it's the same concept that I kind of have in my program, that I don't allow more than 5 guys from the same high school, because for me, it's just something that they kind of have to adapt to when they get to the next level, whether it's junior college or D1, D2. Those are the things that, they are looking for. They want players that are going to come in and put in the work for minutes, and not be falling into the shadows and just put themselves in a shell and say, I want to go home. Are they going to work hard, Mike? Are they going to be here because they want to be here? You're from Miami, you're in the bottom of the map, and are they going to be okay with the cold? And stuff like that. So it's a lot that we all don't know, and I try to do within a year, 6 months, however long I can with the 23s. But then it comes down to the technicalities. Are they good? Are they a good level? Every center back needs to understand how to play a center back or right back position. And it goes back to what, our previous video we were watching. Every player needs to understand the roles, every role. You don't want to sit on the bench, man. You're going into a sophomore year, junior year in college, you're still going to have to invest some money, and are you going to want to pay those $10,000 for not playing because you say, no, I'm just a striker, and are you gonna really be able to use that player? No, because we play a 4-3-3 and there's only one striker, so we got to be a little bit more open-minded, and then that's when they come with me. Sometimes they don't know these things and they learn,
So Mike, you talked about like at your club, you don't like to bring more than 5 guys that play in the same high school, similar to a strategy that of a PDL system that we had before. Where do you find these players for your club? That you get, are these players that essentially get cut from other clubs, or maybe that they can't pay for the other club, and maybe your I guess program is either cheaper or free. Where is it that you're finding these kids? Because it sounds like, and I haven't had the opportunity, to go out and watch your team play, but I'll get out there, I promise. But it sounds like, from what Mauro is saying, I mean, you have studs on your team, and you're finding them from all over the place.
They're
so
young.
I'm just curious.
And they're competing against real good adult players. And
right.
You can tell that they have pasta, that they have a lot of future.
Right. So, I'm just curious. Where are you getting these guys?
Instagram. I started with Instagram, and but word of mouth. I've always said that if you're gonna do a good job, the product will spread, and eventually the word gets out. And Kendall Soccer Park has been amazing for us. They opened doors for us within the first year when they renovated the fields. So that helped a lot. But it's a good area. It takes about 30-40 minutes to get there. So for some, and then 10-15 minutes for some. But it's really about how much you really want it. At the end of the day, we as we know in our countries, you got players that take multiple buses up and down for hours, and then they get to practice. But here, it takes 40 minutes for a player, and it's like, oh my God, no, I can't do that. It's really far. And it's not. It's really not. But we get it. We understand, because you have school the next day or whatever the responsibilities you have. It takes a lot of sacrifice, and for us, it was a lot of sacrifice. At the end, you have to sacrifice your time, your life, if you really want to do this. You want to go pro, you got to go through a process of sacrificing your time and efforts and energy and blood and sweat to really get there, man. It's not easy when it goes from, going from high school to pros. It's just not. Especially here, the infrastructure is so, behind that it's hard for anybody to say, hey, we're gonna develop you in a year and you're gonna go pro. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There's a process for that, and hopefully, we could continue coaching and get, the best coaching out here, but it's tough. It's a very, like how Mauro was saying, it's very competitive. But I'm trying my best to really educate them with what I've, my experiences, my flaws, to not do them, and help them and guide them, especially with, the financial side of it, because a lot of us, when I was in my time, I was the only one that went to college. I was the first one to go to college and graduate. I had 3 older sisters. But I have a bunch of nieces and nephews that also are following up, and going to college and getting their degrees. But I know the process, I understand it, and I know how hard it is. I know about the student loans, I know about the FAFSA. I know every little thing about what it means to really get to where you want to go, and especially when those that don't have the financial stability, JUCO is not a bad place. I love JUCO, and small towns, and they help you. It helps you to focus on the sport and on being a student athlete,
Right. Well, and you talked about how hard that jump is to get from, going high school or playing club to get to pro. And really, the way that the system is set up in the US is really for our young players to really, get a scholarship to college. That's really kind of how it's set up. You go to high school, you play club soccer so that you can get some sort of scholarship so you don't have to pay that much for college. And I think that's kind of how it's set up in the US, and one of the questions that we got, which is interesting, and I don't want to put you on the spot or ask you for a specific ratio or a number, but one of the questions was, in Mike's program, how many players or what is the percentage of players in your program that do go to college or that do get a scholarship? And what type of scholarships is it that they're seeing? That's one of the questions that we got when we said that we were going to have you on. So I'm curious to hear the answer.
No, absolutely. And we've been on for 4 years. I launched it in 2019. I started as a recruiting system first. I didn't charge anybody that needed to, go to college or wanted to go to college for the first 2 years. 2017, 2018, I was just doing it freelance. And then the first 2 years as a club, as a program, as an academy, everything you can think of, whatever word you want to use, that's what we are. I was still freelancing it too. And those were my first 2 years that I was really focused on. At the beginning, it was tough because it was just 1 or 2 players, but then I was like, I need to send more players. I need a list of more players. I have too many contacts. I need more players. I can't just have 2 forwards or 1 forward. And then I have another, Boston College, Francesco telling me, Mike, I need another striker. You have a striker. And it's like, oh, okay. Now I need to step up my numbers, So then that's when I started with the program. And I had more numbers. But not everyone's D1, not everyone's D2. So yeah, with JUCOs, you package them. You kind of try to make it affordable for them to go there if they can't afford, the 5 to the 10K a year. Do you really want to go into a D1, D2 program where you're gonna pay $10,000, maybe $15,000 your first year, and really fight for it? Or do you want to pay $2,500 for the year in a junior college, play a lot of minutes, get some experience? The experience that Mauro was saying, go hard, get the thicken your skin a little bit, and then move up to the D1 or D2 level. Between that and the last 4 years, since it was 2019 and we're in 2023, I think we were in the first 2 years we had higher numbers. It was about 10 to 20 the first 2 years. And then the numbers started dropping a little bit just because of COVID. And then once COVID hit, everyone was holding on to their pockets for a little bit. So it was more about JUCO because it was more affordable and not everybody wants to play JUCO. So I had to get the right group that understood that. And then that, this is not going to be a year that's going to count for you because it's COVID. So you could still go there for a year and then transfer into another school. But in the past 4 years, with my program and then what I do on the side as well, because I do place players on the side that do have the potential. I believe in the last year, I think it was 7, and then 2023 I already have 2 in the spring in North Kentucky University, which is they play in the Horizon League. He has a nice scholarship there. Mimi Schneider came out of my program, went to Daytona for the first 2 years, on a full ride. And then now he's on a full ride at Oral Roberts. He gained it and then worked his butt off, and then he's done really well. And I was part of that process as well with the back part of it, with the coaches and all. And it's you got to be involved. If you're not involved, it's tough for the kids because they don't really know how to talk. And if you don't speak the language with these coaches, it's tough.
Yeah,
because it's part of it. And then that's but we're there. We're it's the challenge is when players don't with the high school. And this year was really challenging to me. And high school got in the way, and a lot of players. And then
in what way? In what way do you mean? High school, like
they were
non-soccer way.
For the high school, too dedicated for the high school, and didn't really put much time into what I asked them to do regarding the video footage, putting together their highlights. I'm going to put my part, but at the end of the day, you got to put your part too. So if you're not showing up to practices, sorry, you fall under the line of the line where everyone that's showing up to practices, these are the guys I'm going to be talking about first.
Right.
And that's my system. Like if you're falling down the line, that's not my fault.
And that's a good point. A lot of kids, and we went all of us went through this. You feel that someone is gonna knock on your door and gonna say, "Hey, Mister So and So, here's your full ride to." You need to work for it, not only for college,
Absolutely.
for pro. You need to work on putting your videos, of course, your physical activities and training at home. But you need to go out there and knock on doors and send emails and
Right.
and move yourself and go to practices. If you, Mike, from College Dreamers, say that you're gonna help these kids to get scholarships, okay, you better go to each of the practices, listen to what you say, and abide with the program, because at the end of the day, you're there to help them as well.
Yeah,
So it's a message that is important. Like, nobody's gonna knock on your door and offer you a pro or a scholarship.
And then you're showing up to practice once a week. Like, I'm sorry, dude. And when that bad habit continues to happen, you either get cut from me and you move on, and then best of luck with everything, But college is not for everybody. The pros is not for everybody. If you don't want to work hard for it, unfortunately, there's someone else that's gonna go in harder on you, and then he's gonna win the spot. And then that's because he's put his time into it. He's put a lot of time to what he really wanted to do. Right. And it comes to these, for instance, these ID camps. This is one of the things that a lot of people don't understand. The ID camps, they do help, they do work. But are you a player that comes into an ID camp that didn't play a whole year, or are you a player that's been practicing 4 times, 5 times a week, and then you're the one that's on pace? That's technically better than the other players that are there, and then you're the one that it's showing up, and it's switched on to being an athlete,
Right.
and then that's
Right.
okay. That's who I like,
Right.
But kids don't understand that,
Well, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about where they can find out more about College Dreamers? That way, because we have some comments here. Where parents can find out about the process. Do you help out, or is there? You have I mentioned your website, www.collegedreamers.com, but where else can folks find out some more information about you and your program, so that we can send some more guys your way? This is your 30-second elevator speech right here, man.
IG.
No, the College Dreamers Instagram, it's very active. If you're very interested on becoming a student athlete, we can help you. We can help you with the tools, with the guidance, and the advice. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be super involved in it. If you really want to be part of this and you wanted this journey, I'm very part of it throughout the whole time. Throughout 4 years of college, I'm there. I have coaches calling me at 2:00 in the morning from California, and I'm there answering their phone calls. And it's like, Cal State Fullerton, George is hitting me up, and it's like, "Hey, Mike, what's going on? What, you just sent me a video. I like this guy. What's going on? What's the situation?" 2:00 in the morning, I'm cleaning my eyes. I'm like, "Oh, I gotta answer this. I'm not gonna miss this." But yeah, you gotta be involved. I gotta be involved. And you could also get my info on collegedreamers.com, and hopefully I'll see you guys on the tryouts. We play in the PFL. Tryouts are going to come up and again in a couple more weeks, and then in May for the next year for all the youngsters that want to start their path, their process, in their freshman and sophomore years, because that's what's really important.
Well, before we let you go, let's have you answer that last question that we saw across the screen that Steven asked. Yeah, how has it changed in terms of being scouted by a D1 program compared to when you were scouted back in your day? And has the MLS hurt the kids' chances significantly because of it?
I didn't get scouted, man. I didn't get scouted. Back then, there was no way of getting scouted. Like what was, you had no YouTube, you had no cameras. You had no contacts. Like there was just nothing. Everything was just emails, and it was like and you had to send us a DVD disc, and it's like I didn't have that technology. Like my parents were making $30,000 a year. Like I wasn't gonna do that. So I knocked on Coach Munga's door, and Munga helped me out. I love Munga to death. That's my man. That's the one guy that really got me out of this. And I still see him every once in a while. Give him a hug every once in a while. And and he was the one that led me the way to the JUCO. Go there 2 years, come back to FIU. Fortunately, I wasn't a Panther. I told Coach Munga, hey, I'm sorry I can't come, but I'm gonna stay out. I'm gonna go up to Michigan and go and play and be a Grizzly. And he's like, hey Mike, as long as you graduate, I'm more than that's all that makes me happy. So, but no, today there's a lot of showcases. D1 programs do go to showcases. They love to see video. They also go to their their circle of friends that are really trusted with their vision. They understand what they're looking for, because every coach is different. They have a different style of bringing in players, and they're they're very critical on the little things that they're looking for. So but it is hard. It's still hard, but it's still not not impossible.
All right, Mike. Well, I appreciate you coming on and answering some questions with us. Hopefully, we can get you back on again on a future show, and we'll see if your team makes it to the finals against FC Kendall. Maybe we'll have you back on to
we'll do a live stream.
Maybe we'll do a live stream at the show, and I'll be out there and I'll do a play-by-play. Yeah, that's what we'll do.
I appreciate you guys, Danny, Mauro, Nico, all of you. Jonah, I still love you. But Danny, you guys are the best. I appreciate you time.
All right, man.
Thank you for the time. My
yeah, too. Crack.
All right, guys. I don't know if any one of you has anything else you wanna leave our listeners with, or if you want to close out the show.
I think that this topic requires so many episodes. Like so many things, are there to be said still. So, but it was a great show, man. Great show, great people, great information for the viewers. The ones that asked the questions. So, I think it was a great show overall.
Yeah, hopefully this is the first one of many on this topic. I think there's so many things to chat, very different views. Let's see how the community reacted, if they like it, if they ask for more.
Definitely.
I believe that one day we need to have someone from Inter Miami, someone from Weston, someone from pretty much and other clubs as well. To also listen to their perspective and ask them directly all these tough questions that a lot of us have.
Maybe a parent that their kid has gone to club to club looking for something they haven't found yet. So that could be another option. Have the people from the clubs and their parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
no,
definitely.
and any other questions or any other or really anything you guys want to see us, any programs, any specials, leave it in the comments. Send us a tweet at either one of our individual accounts or at the TIF podcast account. We're open to do any type of show, really, anything that has to do about soccer. Like we said, we've been in all different facets of the game, and we're really open to talk about soccer, really about anything. And we want to give a special shout out to Miami-Dade Soccer for helping us out and getting some of the questions out and
something we didn't talk enough, and it's been growing a lot in Miami and South Florida, is women's soccer. So that's maybe another episode, okay? And we can have Chris back as the founder of one of the main soccer clubs here, and give some space to the ladies. There's a lot of women involved in soccer community here. As a matter of fact, the president of Miami Rush is a lady that she's been leading that club for many years, and there's many other ladies leading this beautiful sport here in the community.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts, Nico?
No, they were all great topics. I'm happy that we were able to do a special show on this because obviously I feel like everyone has a voice and we all have different opinions, and the only way to get to the goal, and the only way to get to where we want to get as a city, as a community in Miami, is by raising all this almost awareness, to be able to get better on it, day by day.
All right. Well, we want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day tomorrow. Spend tomorrow with the ones that you love.
Put the last comment from Mati Malgar, one of our viewers, because this closes the loop. Put it up. Leave it there.
There you go.
Yes, and maybe this is a message for Inter Miami. Like, we have the best talent in the United States here. Okay, when is that starting to reflect on?
Well, what are you trying to say? You don't want any Ukrainians in Miami?
I want local academy, genuine Miami players.
I'm still waiting for an academy player to play, more than 2 or 3 games for Inter Miami. So, hopefully that happens this year. I really hope, one of the young guys really shows up for us this year. So,
yep, gotta be.
All right, guys. Well, let's close this one out. We'll be back on Friday with
maybe on Thursday. Maybe we have we have a guest, an Inter Miami player. So
okay, so
let's hold it.
Whoa!
This guy's dropping.
One of the new signings. So
we're growing.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Ukrainian?
Wait. Are you gonna bring
the
Ukrainian?
No.
Sergi?
No, Sergi Christoph, ¿cómo es el nombre? But no, we're bringing one of the players. We're just waiting on confirmation. Thursday at 9 p.m. We might have one of the new signings from Inter Miami for the season.
Bueno, muy bien. Awesome.
So there you have it first from Ever's mouth. We're changing our Tuesday show to Thursday due to Valentine's Day, and we'll have hopefully, if we can confirm that Inter Miami player, we'll have him on, and then we'll be back on Friday for our normal, regularly scheduled Friday all Spanish show, which will have some interesting topics.
Serious show that we have.
Absolutely.
On Friday.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate it.
Subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe.
Yep. Subscribe. Hit the notification button. And
thank you to Miami-Dade for all that exposure.
Absolutely.
Watch some football tomorrow. Champions League.
Champions League's back. Let's go.
Champions League's back.